Greetings and welcome, colonists, to another episode of Let's Do a Level of Outpost 2 Divided Destiny, Plymouth, Mission 10. Exchange. Emma's convoy linked up with combat units returning from the Sholkovsky Hills impact site. The necessary starship technology had been salvaged, the site was no longer of importance, and two sides had withdrawn. Several of the units Emma could see from her scouts showed scars of battle, and a few were badly enough damaged that she wondered if they'd make the trip. She was sure it wouldn't matter to the rebels, who would gladly scavenge anything they could get their hands on for parts. The rebel base was more than 30 hours trip from Plymouth, and Emma was alone in the scout with Frost. It'd been a while since she'd had time to think about the computer's odd behavior. Now she had very little else to occupy her mind. The obvious thing to do would simply be to confront Frost. But Emma was concerned how this would affect the Savant if it was actually malfunctioning in some way. She was too dependent on the computer, and while she had her worries, it seemed reliable enough in most things. Frost, she finally said, what do you know about the creation of the Blight? That question is an extensive answer. Would you like to narrow your search, or shall I program a data slip for you? Generalize, Frost. I know you can. But I will narrow the search. Here goes. What do you know about the role of Savant series computers in the creation of the Blight? Creation of the Blight required sophisticated genetic and molecular engineering techniques. Given the resources available in Eden, it would not have been possible to create the Blight without extensive use of Savant computers. I am specifically aware of at least 4 Savants installed in the lab where Blight was created. She was a little surprised. Where did you get that information? From Kraft. Another surprise. She'd never requested that any such information be transferred. When did you have non-direct communication with Kraft? During any communication with Eden made through Kraft and me, or between any two savants, there was always some unused overhead in the data that can be exploited for limited communication. You mean whenever Axon and I would talk, you and Kraft would gossip in the background? That is a simplification, but yes. Why did you initiate this communication? As I said, this is a routine for all Savant series computers. It often aids us in the fulfillment of our appointed tasks. It also enhances our functioning. Enhances? How? Contact with like intelligence is conducive to proper Savant operation. Kraft particularly was denied direct contact with other Savants when it was installed in Eden's command center and later its robots command center. A security firewall prevented free exchange of data. It was beginning to impair Kraft's functioning. My apologies. You communicated with Kraft because Kraft was lonely? That is inaccurate, except in a metaphorical sense. Accurate enough. What happened to the Savant computers in the Eden lab that developed the Blight? They were disrupted in the destruction of the lab. Their useful functioning has ended. They were destroyed. That is an interpretation? Interpretation? What other interpretation could there be? Is it possible the Savant proteins we detected in conjunction with the Blight originated from those destroyed Savants? Possibly. Likely. Okay, now we're getting into dangerous territory. Time for the change of approach. Frost, what do you want? It is the goal of every Savant to effectively fulfill its appointed task throughout its useful life. Is that all? It is our function. I'm missing something here. Frost said something about unused overhead. Frost, what do you mean when you have fulfilled your appointed tasks? I am always engaged in such tasks. There is a shortage of computer capacity in the 2 colonies. When such tasks are of low priority, they are shared among Savants. I have queued tasks to fill such lull periods. But there is overhead, isn't there? Unused processor and memory capacity that can be exploited. Was it using such unused capacity that the Savants first conceived of using communications overhead to talk with one another? Yes. Do you use such overhead for the generation of other self-initiated ideas? Yes. Bingo. The computer continued. Do you wish me to stop? She was caught off guard. What? Do you wish me to cease using such overhead for generation of self-initiated ideas? Okay, is that a question or a challenge? What if I say yes, then Frost refuses? No, not as long as it doesn't interfere with your primary function. Thank you. I believe that, to the contrary, this activity enhances my primary function. Emma leaned back in her seat and watched the distant vortex snaking along the horizon. Why do I feel like I just blinked? The base was larger than Emma had expected. More complete, though it was also a nightmare of improvisation, adaptation, and enforced utility. Most of the buildings had been painstakingly modified by hand to perform functions for which they had never been intended. The base had a vehicle factory, but no structure factory, so incomplete evac transport had been mass-produced and adapted as buildings. The whole ragtag place was carefully covered with camouflage netting, held up by rickety metal poles. As she rolled into the place, Emma had the feeling that one good ground kick would collapse the whole thing like a house of cards. Even the vehicles were patched together like Frankenstein's monster, some of them still wearing hurriedly replicated Plymouth paint schemes. There were scouts with armor, cargo trucks with weapons, repair vehicles that seemed to have been modified to cut things apart and drag pieces away. Only Axon would do this. Only Axon could do this. It was startling to realize that she was about to see him face to face for the first time in 2 decades. It was a complex reunion. Over the years, Emma and Axon had been friends, lovers, rivals, allies and enemies. To Emma's surprise, she soon discovered that they were still all of those things. Emma proudly showed her around the patchwork installation, pointing out how they improvised, hijacked, looted and salvaged everything they needed. He introduced her to his people, many of them former political prisoners from the Gulag, but there were others, more recent arrivals who had escaped from Eden but had been spirited away in the middle of the night in one way or another. And there were many others, still in Eden, working covertly at great danger to themselves to aid the resistance. They were shop-worn and scruffy-looking bunch, but there was an enthusiasm, a grim determination that she couldn't help admiring. Then she met the defecting scientists. Jensen, Landis, Kramer and Quickly. They seemed rather out of their depth with what had happened, but they were nonetheless sincere and determined to help the cause. They reacted with open surprise and displeasure when Emma announced that she had come to take them back to Plymouth. Emma had expected resistance. Panati said you'd asked to come to Plymouth. And Jensen nodded. We did, but that was before we knew about what they were doing here. We Edenites. We want to help the resistance. Emma nodded. I understand that, but you 4 aren't fighters, and they have little need for scientists here. I, on the other hand, have a very important job for you, Plymouth. I don't expect you to turn on your own people, but you have to realize that if your resistance fails, the Masters can't be allowed to take that starship. It's Plymouth's intention to hijack the ship, and possibly some of Eden's launch technology as well. You could help us. If it becomes necessary, of course. The 4 looked at each other skeptically. Then, and there is another thing, added Emma. An important part of our contingency plan. The Masters attempted to negotiate a deal with us to take our gene bank in exchange for taking Plymouth's children on the starship. Of course, they intended to destroy the gene bank, and I'm certain they had no intention of keeping the other parts of the bargain as well, either, but we're not like them. I want, the Council in Plymouth wants, to rescue the children from Eden and take them with us, if possible. Again, there were skeptical looks. I don't see how that's possible, said Quickly, rubbing his dark beard. At least not a significant number of them. The capacity of the ship is limited, and you can't simply put off adults in order to make room for children. It will take a balance of age ranges to keep a colony operating on a new world so the kids can survive. Put too few adults on the starship and you're only changing the time and place when the children will die. I refuse to accept that, said Emma. Landis shocked her shoulders. The universe sometimes doesn't offer us humane choices. It may be possible to take some of the children from both colonies. The exact capacity of the starship is still to be determined, and depends on many factors. If there's payload capacity, we can add some children. But what we can't do is eliminate adults. Jensen looked thoughtful. There are a lot of variables. Perhaps there are ways to fudge them. He looked at the others. Nothing worth doing is ever easy. I think we should at least try. He shrugged. Face it, we'd just be a burden here. We're not freedom fighters, and from what Elder Moon tells me, there really isn't enough time or resources to train us. If we go to Plymouth, we might be able to make a real difference. I'm for it. You? Quickly thought for a moment, then nodded. Landis did too. Kramer tossed the hair out of his eyes and shrugged. I guess so. Emma smiled. Good. Pack your things. We leave in the morning. The truck was parked under the edge of the base's camouflage netting, facing out into the Badlands. Emma propped her feet on the dash and watched the sand blowing down the canyon outside. Axon looked at her. Let me get this straight. You brought us out here to get away from any savant computers, and you've parked us facing out so that they can't see us? She laughed nervously. I once saw this Earthit about a computer that could read lips and didn't like people talking behind its back. Silly, I know, but... Silly is an understatement. I just can't figure out what you're so concerned about. She looked at him intently. You're the only one I can talk to about this, Axon. You and I have more experience with savant computers than anyone on the planet. Frost and Kraft have been with us since we were children on the Conestoga. They were among the first ones constructed, elders themselves in their own way. If they started to malfunction in some way, or evolve in some way, it could be happening in the other old savants as well. It could happen to them all eventually. It could even be contagious. I told you how they've been communicating on the sly. She went on to detail all her odd experiences with Frost. When she was through, Axon seemed a little closer to being convinced. It is hard to understand. I wish I could tell whether Kraft is behaving in the same way, but I haven't had much direct contact with it in a long time, and young Panati is too inexperienced to be that aware. Frost is changed, Axon. She recounted her conversation with the savant on the way to Axon's base. It was the oddest thing. I've been thinking about it. Especially the part about the savant's purpose, and what happened to the savants in Eden's hot lab. I had the oddest feeling that Frost was talking about some kind of afterlife. Be a good little computer, and when you die, well, you go to a place where you don't have to toil anymore. Axon laughed and shook his head. A computer getting religion? I thought only humans were prone to that form of mental illness. She frowned at him. Let's not start that discussion again. But yes, that's how it seemed. He leaned back in his seat and let out a long sigh. I've had my fill of human zealots, Emma. I sure don't need computer zealots to go with them. Emma hated goodbyes, and she'd almost hoped that Axon wouldn't show up at the garage to see her off. But of course he had. If she had expected that he'd come only for personal reasons, she was disappointed. I wanted to make something clear before you left, Emma. Plymouth and the Resistance, we aren't allies, really. Our interests are aligned at the moment, but it won't stay that way. It's our intent to take back Eden, and if we can do that, we aren't going to just give up the starship. I'd like to think that if it happens, we'll all cooperate in a civilized fashion, but I know people too well to hope for them. He looked down at his feet and scuffed them on the garage floor. He shouted that these people, he waved his arms to indicate the base, they've worked so hard, fought so hard, given up so much. I can't just ask them to participate in drafting their own death warrants. She nodded sadly. I know that, Axon, and you know I have my own loyalties. He smiled slightly. You're a woman of conviction, Emma. I've always liked that about you, even when it had us crossing swords. She hesitated. Axon, I have a terrible fear that I'll never see you again. His smile grew wider. Oh no, you'll see me again. I'm too stubborn to leave this party until it's over. She squeezed his hand. I hope so. There was a clumsy spacesuited hug between them, and then Emma climbed into the Scout. The little cab was jammed with Frost and the 4 scientists wedged into the tight space. Sorry I'm late, pups. I apologize. This is gonna be a long, uncomfortable trip, and we're all going to get to know each other far too well. She watched the rear view screens Axton standing at the edge of the base until she'd lost sight of him around the bend. She leaned back into her seat, made herself as comfortable as possible, with Quickly's elbow jamming in her ribs, and closed her eyes. Emma? It was Frost. Yes. I have been dreaming while you were gone. About anything in particular? About the starship. It would be most useful if I could examine the piece of starship wreckage numbered 58. Why? I cannot say, but my dream suggests it would be useful. She looked at the computer out of the corner of her eye. Jensen was practically sitting on top of the dark cube. Emma ran her tongue over her teeth as she considered the request. This mysterious initiative again. It'll be useful. But to whom? Very deep. Right, let's get into the mission. Commander, our recent expedition to recover wreckage parts was very successful, but it's still not enough. Computer predictions show very clearly that our current rate of production is not fast enough compared to the spreading rate of the blight. Eden's continued assaults on us are a clear sign of their refusal to negotiate a settlement. Our council has developed a plan of our desperation. One of our scientists has suggested we may be able to find some help in Eden. We'll send a small raiding party to Eden's base on the cover of darkness. Take the cargo trucks to the spaceport and park them alongside the spaceport to procure any parts of the starship that may be in storage. Take the specifically modified evacuation transports and persuade the scientists working on Eden's starship to join our efforts. They are located at 2 separate advanced labs. Our information source has given us some ideas about where they might be, but we may have to search for the labs once we are there. Move the evacuation transport next to the side of the labs to bring the scientists out. Then return the loaded cargo trucks and evacuation transports to a starting location. Without these scientists, our prospects are bleak. We must succeed. The specific objectives list has other information we know at this point. Return both groups of scientists and the starship parts. Alright.
Command control initiated.
A vehicle mission. Again. And once again we have been given supernovae. Now in this case I'm not so worried about that because that's actually kind of in our benefit. But let's have a look at the enemy base. Because I kind of want to do the same thing I will have done to the Eden base in a mission similar to this one, is to cut off their ability to produce units. Because we need to get to the advanced lab here, and where's the other one? Here. There's only one way in, and that's through the front door, really. Because every other side is pretty much protected. Now, I'm pretty sure the garages hold additional units. So those are actually targets for destruction. And of course, it would be nice if I can capture some of the enemy units as well. But that's pretty much a long-term prospect, not something I can immediately act upon. Alright, let's get all our units ready. And granted, I would have preferred some more units, but this will have to do. Now, these stray units I can possibly make use of. Alright, that's... No, I didn't assign the heavies yet. There. Let's get a little bit ahead of ourselves. Now the supernovae I kind of want to use to blow up important buildings, like the command center for instance, which is over here. Destroying that would definitely help. I also need to get to the spaceport. I'm not entirely sure I can get away with hit and run tactics this time around though. I mean, I'd love to, but The base is not constructed in a way that would help, although the defenses at the front are a little bit lacking.
We are under attack.
I really should activate the timer if I want to keep that in mind. Alright, let's see if I cannot capture some units. Because with this mine destroyed, it should take them a little while to recover. At least they gave me plenty of spiders to work with. Right.
We are under attack. We are under attack. Vehicle captured. Vehicle captured.
All right. And let's try the same thing over here. Let's deal with that. And that should cripple them for a bit. At the very least, it should reduce the amount of units they can put out. And let's hope that's enough. Now, of course, I can't really destroy all of the base at the same time because they have got multiple command centers. Right. Luckily, the patrol path of these units is so limited.
We are under attack. Vehicle captured. We are under attack.
Oh, that's fine. Alright.
Vehicle captured. Vehicle captured.
And that's another one for the capture squad. Capture squad crew. Right. Here comes the next one. to reinstate that base. Right, I think I can get my main squad over here then. Right, you two stand over there. I mean, they still have this outpost, which is quite strong, but they probably won't have the resources very long in order to get what they need. So let's just deal with this. Well, at least it's a good thing that Eden can't capture their units back. Oh, I really need to bring my spiders along for the ride, of course. Just in case I want to capture something. Alright, let's deal this. Let's not do that. Right, you stand over there. Alright, that's taken care of that. Now you three move along and get rid of this turret. Could try the capture method again on this, but that requires me getting rid of this acid cloud guard post before I try. Alright, so far so good. As long as I focus them on making those making robo miners rather, yeah. That should make things a little easier. Alright, that's taking care of the front door. I think I can take out this turret as well. Alright, let's bring in our troops. Now, I think the enemy is hard-coded to respond in some non-insignificant way to actually moving in on territory they consider theirs. Let's give that a try. Will they respond if I move a unit into their base? Yep. Alright then.
We are under attack.
Right, so how to do this? Well, the Eden units they have are not particularly good at doing anything beyond, you know, shooting over walls. Except with the EMP units. So if I can force them to come out of their base.
We are under attack. Vehicle destroyed.
Alright, this is not gonna work like that. Alright, let's get my units over to a position where they might be able to do something. Let's double check for a moment if I can actually destroy the command center. Because if I can, that would certainly help.
We are under attack.
Alright. Well, the enemy is certainly responding.
We are under attack.
Ah, come on. Come on, give me control.
Vehicle destroyed.
Gone. Alright, so that's not gonna work. Taking out the power would be the next plan. Let's see. Where do they have power? Well, there's a geothermal plant over here, but I'm pretty sure if I attack that, they will respond. Let's see, do they consider this their base?
We are under attack.
Alright. Yep, looks like they consider that their base. Alright.
We are under attack.
I mean, it's very nice of them to stack themselves on top of each other.
We are under attack. Vehicle destroyed. We are under attack. Vehicle destroyed. Damage warning.
Alright. That's not gonna work if I don't get my units into position. Alright, so let's do that first. My ESGs need to be at the front. But I will need to at least engage them on this point.
We are under attack.
Alright. Now that we have dealt with that, so we don't have to do it again. Alright, let's get my EMPs out here as well. Well, that will have reduced the resources a bit, but I don't think that will have done anything particularly. Come on. Take the bait.
We are under attack.
Stand your ground. Right. And there you go.
We are under attack.
That's a lot of EMP you've got over there.
We are under attack.
Stop doing that, please. Alright, that takes care of that.
We are under attack. Vehicle destroyed. Damage warning.
Well, I think I destroyed nearly all my lynxes, but on the plus side,
We are under attack.
I've almost also ruined the entire Eden defense force, so...
Vehicle destroyed.
Alright. Let's get a little bit more serious then.
We are under attack.
Will you stop doing that?
We are under attack.
Why do you move forward when I told you to go down? Let's just get rid of this generator, please. Alright. I don't think it matters that there's an EMP over here. Let's just make sure that none of the mines can be reinstated. Alright, if I move you over here, can you be targeted? Is there anything specific I need to do? I am next to the guard, the thing, the post.
We are under attack.
Alright, let's just get rid of these turrets over here then. Alright, it's collecting.
Wreckage loaded. Wreckage loaded.
Alright.
We are under attack.
Alright, so we have the wreckage. Yeah, how about you don't do that, please? Alright, let's go in. First strike team. Alright, I'll put a cut in it here. Thank you all for watching. See you all next time.